this thing on. La 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 la. I be that 20-30 flow, bopping around the house. House slippers on while baby is on the couch. I be that 20-80 flow, bouncing around the city. Hand fit laid, flexing and looking pretty. I be. Be what you need in a breeze. Chill side queen, see giving you what you need.
You found Take a Beat, a 20-minute Chicago NSBE Professionals production. If you are into all things Black excellence in STEM, you have come to the right place for that. With a little bit of shenanigans and hot sauce on the side. Or maybe tater salad. I'm not sure yet. We are your hosts, James the Man
and Benita, aka Alpha. Thanks for joining us. Now let's take a beat.
I don't gotta drip like they do. Nope. I don't gotta spit like they do. Nope. I don't give a shit what they do. Get it? Flip it. I don't even get that mad, cause chicks still gonna get that bag. I don't give a get who gets mad. Get it? Flip it. I don't gotta drip like you do. Nope. I don't gotta spit like you do. Nope. I don't give a shit what you do. Get it? Flip it. I don't even get that mad, cause chicks still gonna get that bag. I don't give a get who gets mad. Get it? Flip it. Look up and I'm in Cali, Chi-Town raised. Though now when I pull up, they call me Valley. Do by not doing, I do what I'm doing. It's too experimental for few, so I'm cluing all. Interested, I'm doing all solicited activities. It's
what up, good people out there? Welcome to Take a Beat. And we don't give of what you do. No, I'm playing. I'm sorry.
Hey.
We can't say that. We cannot say that. you guys just heard. Oh, we just heard a snippet of the video "Flip It." See, I got it by Miss Toiné Houston, our guest today. Speaking of people who are creative, obviously not me, but people who are creative, we have a very creative person here with us today, Miss Toiné Houston.
Bah, 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 bah. Oh.
Right?
I felt like you needed it. Like,
yeah, I mean, we don't have that yet. See, we need some sort of trumpets blaring.
Yeah, right.
All sorts of things. Yes, Miss Houston.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
Yes, thank you for coming. Well, turning us on. No, that's not right either. What?
Yeah.
What do you say? Yeah, you know what I mean. Okay.
I'm here.
Anyway,
how about that?
Right, you're there. All right, Miss Toiné, tell us about who you are, what you do.
Yeah. You know, I'm a Jane of a few trades. First and foremost, I am a daughter and a sister, and hopefully a great friend out here in these streets. But you know, professionally, I am an engineer. Technically, I'm a software engineer, but my specialty is what's called user experience engineering. So it's just all about, you know, making products, services, platforms just easier to use and hopefully a positive engagement, you know, for users. I'm also an animator. I just recently got into that as a result of COVID and just kind of self-taught myself that. And, you know, we can talk more about that later. But yeah, I end up doing some pretty, I'm excited about the things I'm doing in that space. I'm also a musical artist. You know, thank you guys so much for playing a couple of my songs earlier. I just released here's a shameless plug, my most recent album, IB, and available everywhere. And so I'm a poet, I'm a writer. I'm it. And I'm very fortunate for God to allow me to use both my left and right side brain in this world to just, you know, do what I like to do, which is just express in a number of different ways. So,
yeah, that's beautiful. I really like the I'm it. I have like a change of attitude. Similarly, it's like, yeah, I'm the, you know, but so
period.
Yeah, it's, you know, whoever, like whatever. So tell us about your NSBE affiliation, because you are a Chicago NSBE member. You used to live in Chicago, and you're out in the West Coast now. So tell us a bit more about how you learned about NSBE and what you've done with the organization.
So I first got my start in NSBE while I was attending DePaul University. So shout out to the Blue Demons. I originally went to Illinois State, and I had, for whatever reason, I hadn't heard of it down there. But once I came back to Chicago, it was like, wow, like, why am I not a part of that? And it was easy why I wasn't a part of it because DePaul didn't have a chapter at that time. And so it was like, that's weird. And so I kind of helped found, well, not kind of, I helped found the, the first NSBE chapter at DePaul University. And in 1999, not to say my age or anything, but, and ever since then, I was really engaged all through my undergrad, and then even beyond that. So attending the conferences and just trying to be as engaged as I can to just bring more awareness, not only of people of color, but specifically women. Like, I just wanted women to know that they could be part of STEM, and it wasn't just about being a programmer, right? There were a number of different facets within technology, and just bringing awareness to that. So proud of that work for sure.
Okay. And so about more of your UX design expertise. I read some of your blog, the user experience and emotional design, and I was amazed. Well, I think you actually said this in there too about how UX design can be described in terms of a relationship between people on the same level. Could you speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think so. In the most layman terms, right? If you think about a relationship, right, we want to feel desired, right? We want to have like this level of positive engagement with our partner. We want to feel that there's this level of just like intimacy and growth and just all of these positive terms, right? Like we want that in our relationship with self as well as our relationship with others. It's the same sort of feeling I feel like when we are, engaging with a website or with a mobile app, or if we like going to a store, right? It's that feeling of wanting this positive experience, wanting to engage in a way that's going to make me want to return, to whatever that is. To me, it's the same sort of parallel. So when you talk about things like collaboration or just looking at behavior, that same element in our brain that wants this sentiment of like, wow, that was a favorite experience. Like, I remember that website. Or I went to McDonald's and they have amazing shakes. Like, so when I pass that art, I'm going to remember that, right? It's the same thing in a relationship where I remember that feeling that he or she gave me, right? And I want more of that. So it's a lot of parallels, I think, between emotional design and UX and relationships overall, for sure.
Okay. All right. After that description, I think you need to branch into maybe like, relationship psychology or something. Maybe that's your next thing. It made a lot of sense. It made a lot of sense. I'm just saying.
It does. So it's one part I remember of the blog that I was talking about, like this idea of collective brilliance, right? And so when you look at like your relationship, I always feel like whether you're married, dating, whatever, you want your partner. That's my dog. See, she just wants to be involved. You want your partner to carry you, right? So you want to be a reflect. At least in my opinion, you should be a reflection of your partner. So when someone sees me, they shouldn't see just ridiculousness, right? And vice versa. To me, it's the same thing. If you're using any sort of product or service, you want to feel like, wow, this is brilliant. Like these people, they never even met me. They know what I want, right? My needs, my desires, the things that's annoying to me. They've already addressed that, right? That's that same sort of brilliance I feel like is had, and we don't even know it. We're all users of something, whether it's technology based or not. And when we have a bad experience, we remember that. We never want to go back to that. Just like a poor relationship, we don't want to go back to that ex. Please, right? It's like stop calling me, right? So it's the same parallel to me.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because I think that explains now why sometimes I go to a website and I'm just like, what is going on here? And then I'm like, yeah, I'm not buying from whoever this is. And I think that makes a lot of sense. And it's definitely not something that we're even aware of when it's happening. We just know, okay, I don't know what this is, but they're not getting my money and that's it. So
think about the element of safety, right? If you go to like an e-commerce site, if you're there and it just doesn't look like, if it doesn't have that trust seal or just something that resonates with you in terms of say, you don't spend your money. The same thing with relationship. If you go out and for whatever, especially with women, if you just don't feel like, I don't like his energy, you don't feel safe.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm sure even with men, if you're out with someone and you're like, okay, she's crazy or he's crazy, whatever. It's just an energy that we feel that either makes us want to keep engaging or withdraw.
Exactly.
Wow. So speaking of that, it's you have a technical background and you have this creative side, and like, how do those blend on a day-to-day in your life, and how are you seeing how the two come together? Because you talked about using your right and left side of your brain and being able to harness those. So how does that come together on a day-to-day for you?
Yeah, it's interesting because, there's a creative element to user experience, right?
Sure.
To engineering in a way that I think sometimes at first glance people don't really think about. And for me, it's I think that's why I end up going into UX and usability, because I feel like it has to be more than just developing something. No disrespect to the great developers of the world, right? We need it to work, but there's this element of it can work and people still not use it. It could be beautiful and people still not care, right? So it's for me, it's that balance. And so when you look at the creative, whether I'm writing a poem or writing a song or even with the animation, it's still that creative element of it could be funny, but if the visual kind of sucks, or it can look great, but if the jokes are stale, right? So it's still about that balance. So in terms of my day to day, I think that's why I ended up getting into the animation, because it was just something where outside of my 9 to 5, I wanted to be able to still express. And sometimes, I didn't want to write a song or a poem. Like I didn't feel like emoting in that way. It ended up coming out in these other, cartoon sort of shorts or whatever. And it just so happened that was a way that just kind of kept my brain going. So.
Right. So how did you start? How did this all start for you? Like, how did you get into being both an engineer, and how did you start in music and anime?
With anime was recent, but in terms of like just getting into engineering, my mom got me my first computer, I think when I was like 7 or 8. She said it was an Apple. I don't remember. I just remember this big clunky thing in front of me that had these like interesting characters that were moving around, and I was intrigued by that, right? I.e., it was some sort of like game. I didn't know. I just knew it looked very expressive, and it kept my attention, right? Fast forward to high school, I like to talk, so I thought, and I was always like this big proponent of like people being honest and true. So I felt like, maybe I'd be a lawyer, right? Because I like to talk, I like to be in front of people, and I like people to right these wrongs. And then, I don't know, it just, for some reason, like that technical element of always just trying to figure things out and be analytical in that way, it just grabbed me a little bit more than law did. And so when college started, I was like, okay, to me, I guess it makes sense to go into computer science, not knowing any other facets of STEM at that time. I just knew what people had told me. And then, and that was going to be my path. But then it was just like, I was bored to death, and so to kind of take over that, I would write. Now I was always writing before, like even in grammar school, I would write in my journal. I was writing poems and didn't even know it, right? It just was just expressing. And then when I got to college was when my boyfriend at the time, he was like, well, you should come to this open mic. I'm like, okay, what's that? And so because I was just so bored with some of the coding I was doing, I ended up, writing these pieces about some of the stuff that he and I were going through, and just, stuff I was just going through with friends, stuff like that. And so I went to the open mic, and that energy that I got from the crowd, like that immediacy of just like, whoa, or snapping, or yeah, girl, or whatever, that was just everything for me. Like that was such a drug to just get that sort of feedback. And so that kind of sparked that balance for me. Like, okay, I can do this technical stuff and make my money, right? But then I can also be really creative and be able to breathe in that way. That I wasn't able to do before. So, and then yada yada yada, I'm still doing it. So
and you're great at it, actually.
James.
Oh.
Oh wow, yeah. There's like there's a chemistry, right? Getting that rush and being accepted in that way. By people appreciating your art. Like I can. I mean, I'm not a really shape or form an artist, but I definitely do get the same feeling when I do great work at work, and people are like, "Oh, girl, I mean, yeah." So I get that.
Yeah, it's definitely rewarding. And then here's the thing too. People used to call me a relationship poet. I never really knew what that meant, and at first I was like, "Don't box me in," but it was like, "Well, if that's your box, then stand in it, right?" Because I think it was like relatable. It was just relatable stories that I was sharing and being very transparent around that, and other people could just relate to either the happiness I was having or the hurt, whatever that was. So that's cool too.
Yeah. So at the beginning of the show, you were talking about your COVID project, I guess you could call it, your animation.
Yeah.
So the animation series that was Eyes Just Saying.
Eyes Just Saying. How I see
Eyes Just Saying. Exactly. So how did you get started with that? Just with the
so literally I was on my computer one day and I was working with a few different animation programs and just kind of playing around and then I ended up creating this character. I call her Rita. And Rita is, I guess she's a little bit part of me, in the sense of she's over analytical. She is not having a good time dating in these streets with this like online dating, and I'm not on the apps anymore, but I used to be, right? And so she's just not having a good time. And so I was like, you know what? I'm sure I'm not the only woman, the only person that's gone through this in terms of these dating apps. So that kind of started, the whole thing. I ended up creating the episode, 2 minutes about just her literally being in front of a computer. And there was this website that I created or whatever that she was on, which was like single ASF, you know what that means, .com. And so as a result of that, it was just like, oh wow, really? And I don't know, the stories just come to me, and I threw it out there on Instagram, and people really resonated with it. Like, well, like, are you doing that? Like, are you like, is that your voice and everything? I'm like, yeah. So everything is me, like how I create the characters, the stories, the direction, the animation, the voiceovers, and even the male characters. Like, I try to do a little bass or not, because it's about how I see it. So it's not about having voice actors come in to play these characters. It's like, it's the stories that I'm sharing about stories that have happened to me or some version of that, or happened to people that I know. So there is a candidness about it as well, and hopefully funny. So
cool. Yeah, I did see one of them. Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. It's hilarious. I love it.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, you
fast forward just to let you guys know what ended up happening was, and this is the power of technology. I ended up getting a DM from this account on Instagram that was called the On Channel. Now, I don't know if this is a real account at that time or anything, but they DM me and they say, "Oh, really like your Flip It video, but I really like your animation series." At that point, I may have had 4 or 5 episodes. I was like, "Oh, okay," moved on. They came back and was like, "We would love to put a collection of your animation on our platform." So now I'm researching, like, okay, is this a real platform? Is this spam? What is this? They end up being reputable. I end up having a conversation with the CEO. Brian Williams, the actor, he's actually the president. So I know him from just a lot of stuff that he's done on BT and just CBS, etc. And so I'm like, oh, so that's what ended up happening. It was like something I was doing for fun, out of boredom, to being in the house, to be like creatively expressive, end up now being signed to this streaming channel that's Black owned, all about diversity and inclusion. And they're supporting me in a way that I didn't think I would be supported. So
cool.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And you talked about you're telling the stories that you relate to, the things you know, and I think a good part of the creative process is using what you know to tell a story and create something. And I know we talked a little bit earlier about some of the lessons that you've learned in your career and in your life that have played a very good role, good part in a lot of the things you've done, especially since you've been locked down. So can you tell us more of those lessons learned, and then also highlight that telling your story piece? I think it's very important and very crucial.
Yeah. I'm a lot of times people try to like box you in, and I think in my life there's been a lot of oh, she's just a whatever that is, right? I mean, I used to play basketball, for example. I used to run track. I used to do all these sports things. Oh, she's just an athlete. No, right? Or then when I did the poetry stuff, oh, she's just a poet. No, so it's always kind of been this fight, and maybe some of it has been even internal, right? Of just how I feel like the world sees me, but this fight of like being more than one. Like I'm more. I think we're all more than that. Like, right? I mean, we're sons, we're daughters, we're friends, we're individuals, right? We're creatives, we're engineers. I mean, it's a number of different things, and that's okay, right? And especially now with just the climate of the world today of people trying to box us in because of the color of our skin or because of our gender. It's like, no, like don't. Whatever you're thinking about, just don't, right? And so I think that's what probably fueled me wanting to just try things. Even if I fail fast, get the lesson, move on, but just trying those things and being more than maybe even we see in ourselves, right? So taking those chances and being open to things that you may not necessarily be familiar with, that's okay too. Being open to change. I never thought I would be here in California. Yeah. Not living, not working, right? I never thought I used to work for the CIA. I never thought that would happen. The things in my life that it's like, whoa, all right, what's this lesson, Jesus? You know what I'm saying? And you just kind of go with that. And so even when I mentor and I try to talk to the youth, I talk from that lens, right? I'm talking hopefully to them and not at them of the world is so much bigger than that one block radius outside of your window, right? But you have to know that. You have to want that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm here taking mental notes for work.
And that was, it was a great time, right? I mean, I know some people are like not introverts, and this whole COVID and Corona and pandemic has just really messed with their psyche. I think it will be some probably PTSD that comes out of like, oh my God, right? Because some people just don't work well in this sort of climate. But on the other hand, if you're able to adapt and say, okay, maybe this is God telling us, or whoever whether you're religious or not, maybe this is an opportunity to say, wait, let me just kind of stand still for a second. What haven't I done that I've always been looking to do but never really had the time, right? Mm-hmm. What can I tap into that maybe I'm just curious about? That's what I did with this time.
Okay.
Right. Sounds like using your time wisely. That's what that is. I mean, why not? I mean, So as we wrap up things here, do you have any closing comments for all of the wonderful people listening to us and watching us today?
Yeah. I would say, and that's what this is, not trying to be a plug on my album or anything, but I would say just be. Whatever it is you want to be, if nothing else, 2020 has taught us life is short. And we don't know what can happen from day to day, hour to hour, second to second. So just be who you feel like, you're supposed to be on this earth. And even if that hits you with a few trials, that's okay, because the tribulations will be that much bigger, right? You have to take those chances. And who cares, right? It's like, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to, be in this, this mode that even maybe your own perception sees it is. Just do it. And I promise you, whoever's looking at this, if you take that nugget of just being your authentic self unapologetically and just being that and standing in that truth, everything else that's supposed to come to you will be attracted to you. And that's the blessing.
Yes.
Hey, I need that 2030 flow, bopping around the house, house slippers on while baby is on that couch.
I mean, so that's great to end on. I would like to thank Miss Toiné Houston for gracing us with her presence today. And I heard the links to her various projects and whatnot in our chats. So you can go there to see more about her. And I know for a fact her stuff is on Spotify, and it's now on my playlist. I hope you're getting paid for it. I don't know how that works.
I would take that penny. I would take that penny and run with it. Period. Like, I take it all. Okay. So I definitely appreciate it. I appreciate the conversation, the platform. I love NSBE. You know, so you know, it's you guys are family. You always will be. So thank you so much for having me. For sure.
So, Benita, you have any
announcements?
Yes.
Yes, general body meeting this Wednesday at 6 p.m. and we are running a membership drive. So sign up, renew your membership, whatever the case may be. We would love to have you. We have stellar plans going on for this year, next year, a couple years out. You definitely want to be a part of it. So sign up and we'll see you soon. Thanks for joining us. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed today's show. Show us some love in the comment section and be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at Chicago NSBE. For more information about Chicago NSBE professionals, go to chicagonesbe.org. See you next time.
I be the shifting of the culture. Quote, everyone's chosen. Reddit headline, you read it. Focus on dopeness. I be unapologetically why. There's an abundance of young leaders who respect and they fly. The world need us, so I'm happy to be bridging the gap while highlighting how STEM still matures into rap. It's exciting. I be running across the sky, breaking down barriers in a blink of an eye. I Nike so bumper try. You willing to change the lens and see something more poignant than money?